And he is always, if you want to understand power, we have to look at the master. We have to look at the one who is majesty combined with meekness. He's authority in the garb of deep humility. He's unassuming, he's unpretentious, and he's calm. He's riding a donkey. This is true power. And he's rebuking the arrogance of the disciples. If anyone had the right to exercise dominion, it is the God-man, God the second person of the Trinity in human flesh. But he never, ever exercises power by dominating other people. See, I always like to say forced love is not love. It's rape. And God is not a divine rapist. He isn't. He never has been. You can always trust this Messiah because he exhibits true power. Now, do you think we need this word in the church world today? Yes, we still don't understand who Jesus is. We think if it's louder, it's better. We think if it's more dominated, if someone's dressed flashier, if someone has 2 jets instead of 1, all the markings and trappings of power in this world are completely canceled out by the humility Jesus exhibits, and he reveals true power to us. Now, this is power. There are 3 things that we understand about real power. First, truth can afford to speak quietly. Truth can afford to speak quietly. Jesus, you don't have to yell, 2 + 2 is 4. I mean, you can sort of say 2 and 2 is 4. Truth can afford to speak quietly. See, if you're insecure, then you're yelling and screaming and you're trying to dominate the lives of others. Jesus truly had power and authority, and he is completely unpretentious, laid back, and he delights in the hiding of his power. Did you know God delights in the hiding of his power? He wants to hide the power. He doesn't want to bring a lot of spotlights. You wonder why Jesus always said when he did miracles, don't tell anybody, forget about it. Just go thy way. He didn't want the press interview. He didn't want to be put on the same dais with all the Roman procurators and governors, because you see, this world's idea of power and Christ's are diametrically opposed. And yet his people, even in our time, don't understand true power. Do you know we're on the brink of seeing true power displayed in this world? And it's going to be silent power. Truth can afford to speak quietly. And listen to this. Authority can afford to wait. See, the President of the United States doesn't need to yell an order. He can whisper an order because he has true authority. And Jesus had true authority in heaven and on earth, and he could afford to wait. He would wait until the Father exalted him to his right hand. You can wait, and you can wait too. Truth can afford to speak silently, and authority can afford to wait. That's what true power is. True power will never manipulate, cajole, control, force, and beat someone into submission. That is not the kingdom way. And we have too much of that seeps into the church world, blending in with, and it's masked as true power, Now, there's a time to shout and yell and scream, and I'm all for it. I'll be the first one shouting and yelling, and I'll out-scream anybody under the sound of my voice when that's the time for that. But see, that should never be confused with power. Because power, the greatest power on earth, is silent. The silent snow that falls all night and bends down the strongest tree, that's power. The sunlight that warms the entire earth without a sound, that's power. The seed pressing itself up out of the crushed earth, and compacted and all the way to the top. That's power. True power. The constraint of love between a mother and her newborn infant. That baby's fairly powerful, but it's through the constraint and bonds of love that you see true power. That little needy baby will draw all the might of daddy down on one knee. There's true power. So Jesus rebukes their arrogance with his divine lowliness in the morning. First object lesson of Palm Sunday. And again, he wasn't the Messiah they expected. He wasn't even the Messiah they wanted. They wanted him to be a Roman politician, a political hero, an Alexander the Great kind of guy who would kick the butt of Rome and forward all of their concerns. And Jesus said, I'm sorry, but I'm not that guy. First, we're going to take care of the true problem, which is a heart problem, which is a sin problem in the bosom of every man. I'm going, in humility, to offer myself as a sacrifice to forever break the authority of the enemy, and only when there's peace in one human heart can there be the possibility of peace in the rest of the world. And so Jesus struck at the root, not the fruit. He didn't come in and change all of the governments of the world. He came in to do something more significant and more important. And he rebukes arrogance with his divine lowliness in the morning. But the second thing he does, in the morning he rebukes their misconception of power. He shows what true power is like. Authority can afford to wait. Truth can be spoken softly. There's no rush, rush, push, push. No domination. He's completely in control of everything that's going on. And loved one, I want to encourage you today. He's in complete control of everything going on in your life. And there is a power, but it's so subtle you don't even detect it. Subtle. The power we're going to see is going to be the bloodstream of the kingdom, which is love. The power we're going to see is not going to be fire. It's not going to be earthquakes. It's not going to be shouting. It's going to be people who are loved so deeply and profoundly as God intimately approaches them that they will weep and they will be healed and they will be delivered in a moment, but not because someone went, it's because Jesus rebukes arrogance through divine lowliness, and the glory of God is silently at work. You know, an incest victim needs a healing and usually requires some intimacy and safety for that healing to occur, not some public embarrassment in front of television cameras. God's going to do a work beyond anything we've ever dreamed, but it's going to be done in divine lowliness. But the second thing, in the morning, he shows true power. At midday, they arrive at the crest of the hill, put flesh and blood on it. You crest the hill, and all of a sudden before them lay the jewel of God, Jerusalem. Herod's exhaustive complex of temples, which will just be finished in 66 AD before it's overthrown in 70 AD. Jesus has laying before him all of redemptive history at his feet. And surely the disciples think to themselves, this is the moment. The king is here. He's come. He's going to bring justice to all. And as Jesus surveys the very centerpiece, Jerusalem, of all redemptive history, its beauty and its past glories are eclipsed by the horror he foresees with regard to their future. And the disciples awaiting gloating or a Messiah who will exert power or will finally exhibit his authority, turn around and they find him weeping. A weeping judge. Not only has their whole idea of power been overthrown and subverted, but their whole idea of God's heart is transformed in a moment. Even God's justice is merciful. They hear Jesus haltingly say, "O Jerusalem," and he weeps. "If only you had known." But now, he's weeping. The Greek says, sobbing. He was racked with sobs. He's hysterically weeping. Wet cheeks, a Messiah, a weeping judge, another paradigm shift. They've never heard it this way. The city deserves judgment. They deserve justice. They've hardened their neck continually against God. They killed the prophets, and they're going to kill their own Messiah. But even as he's declaring and speaking the truth over them, his heart is broken because he's the crucified one that is afflicted with the afflictions of his people. And his heart is broken. Loved one, even in judgment, there's mercy with him.